Alright, so you've been brainwashed like I have by Gibson's brilliant Greeny Les Paul marketing campaign, but you can't afford anything they put out. You can't afford the 20K Murphy Lab version, you can't afford the 3K plus standard version, Gibson standard version, and then suddenly they released the Epiphone Kirk Hammett Greeny version. And then, but we all know this is $1,500, and you're like, man, I ain't gonna put down $1,500 for an Epiphone. So as I mentioned in my last review of the Epiphone Greeny, there are alternatives like this one here, which is the vintage brand V100 Lemon Drop. PGM is kind of a sneaky way of putting Peter Green model in there in the name. And it is, this one that I have is the distressed version, right? So this one, you know, it's about, in the US, about $700, maybe $750, maybe $799, depending on what retailer you buy it from, because this is really a UK company, so the prices here in the US are kind of off a little bit. I know in the UK, these can go for crazy, ridiculously affordable prices like £400, and I've seen even like £250 brand new. This is the distressed version, which is kind of has a satin feel, and it has this kind of relict look to it, including the back here, you know, has this relic style, and it has a satin finish, so it's a little bit closer to the Epiphone Greeny with its satin style finish than the regular Lemon Drop. The regular Lemon Drop is more the regular glossy feel, but I think this one is closer definitely to the Epiphone version. So let's take a look. You know, this is literally almost half the price of the Epiphone Greeny. So how does it stand up? And is this a good alternate? We'll figure it out. So both have the lemon colored flame top. The V100 slightly darker in color. Both have the mismatched knobs, and both have the flip neck pickup and the out of phase middle position. The Epiphone features a Indian Laurel fretboard, while the V100 has a rosewood fretboard, but that depends on the year. Some years they use what was called a lignum rosa fretboard. And here we have the headstock, of course the famous Gibson style headstock of the Epiphone that we've spoken a lot about in my last review, and the vintage style headstock with the lemon drop signature on the truss rod cover. Both guitars feature a matte satin style finish and feel. They're both going for that played in feel essentially. And I gotta say that vintage really nails that feel. I mean, it really feels played in. Whereas the Epiphone finish kind of feels synthetic, kind of like, you know, the same thing that they use on the Prophecy series. But the vintage doesn't feel like poly at all. I don't know how they made that nitro feel with poly paint, but they were able to do it. Here's the backside. Right off the bat, we see the faux relicking on the V100. Kind of cheesy, but no one's going to see it, and it feels pretty nice. Closer look at the back of the headstock. Notice they do kind of this fake imprint of the supposed previous tuners that were on there before they put on the Wilkinson hardware tuners. More relicking on the neck, a little bit on my own. I sanded it a little bit. The easy access heel that we see in some of the later year V100s, and more relicking on the back of the guitar, including my own relicking with my own buckle rash and such. Good thing about these pre-relic guitars is you don't cry as much when you ding and dent them yourself. So I would say that the median price of the vintage Lemon Drop here in the US is about $750. If you can find it cheaper new, then that's a pretty good deal. I found mine used in the used section of Guitar Center for $4.99. Again, the glossy non-relic version of the V100 Lemon Drop is a little bit cheaper, but if you really want to nail that greeny feel, I think this is the one to get. Depending on the year, these guitars, they're either made in Vietnam, Indonesia, or currently in China. But the build quality and fit and finish, it's pretty consistent throughout, no matter what year you choose. I find the top to be a little bit more interesting than the one on the Greeny. You know, a little more complexity, some cross grain going on, and except some cheesy parts like that section looks like a finger.
But overall, it has a lot of character, you know, and that's what you want in a Greeny, warts and all. Depending on the year, you may get relic pickups or non-relic pickups. You may get relic hardware or non-relic hardware. I got non-relic hardware and relic pickups, so kind of an interesting combination there. And these are called Wilkinson WVC double coil pickups. Now, as far as I can tell, the magnet is flipped in the neck pickup to give you that out-of-phase middle position sound, but it doesn't seem like Wilkinson sells these pickups in the aftermarket, the version with the reverse polarity. Whereas Gibson does sell the Greeny Buckers separately in the aftermarket, the same ones that's on the Epiphone Greeny, so, you know, conceivably you can take any of your Les Pauls and Greenify them with the Greeny Buckers. The Vintage V100 does not come with a case, whereas the Epiphone does. And another thing to consider is the V100 Lemon Drop has a much thinner neck than the 1959 style neck that's on the Epiphone Greeny. Much shreddier. And of course, the Vintage V100 has the pointy cutaway, which they have to do in order to get away from Gibson's lawsuits. And if you're looking at vintage guitars, then of course the style of the headstock and the name on the headstock isn't really that important to you. And it shouldn't be, because this is a very good guitar.
So that's not to say that I don't like the Epiphone one. I actually really do like it. Since I did the review last, I've actually grown to like it even more. Really kind of bonded with it. The Greeny Buckers are really fun to play, so actually give it even another thumbs up since my last review. This is a really great guitar. But, you know, the V100 Lemon Drop, I've loved this guitar since day one. There was no period of gradual bonding. I bonded with this thing right away, and I haven't been able to put it down since I got it. And in fact, this is the guitar that kind of got me into the current Les Paul kick that I'm on right now, which is funny because the Vintage VS6, which is their copy of the SG, which years ago I got, and that's what got me into the SG kick that I was on a few years ago. So I'm a big fan of vintage guitars. They're really great guitars for their price. They definitely punch well above their weight. And I also have the V100 AFD, which is their Slash version of the guitar, and that's also an amazing guitar, and I'll probably do another thing on that. I think if they had a bigger presence in the US, like they do in the UK, they would definitely give Epiphone a run for their money, especially at their price points. You know, and the other thing is the vibe of this guitar. You know, the general, shall we say, mojo of the guitar, you know, is very Greeny. You know, I've heard several people, including like Marco at the Vatican's, saying that, you know, the Gibson Les Paul Standard Greeny just doesn't have that Peter Green Greeny feel. And I think that, you know, some of that argument can extend to the Epiphone version. You know, it's a very nice guitar, awesome guitar, plays awesome and everything, but, you know, besides the Greeny Bucker thing, like, what's really Greeny about it? You know, it's kind of hard to say. It's not something you can really put your finger on. Whereas this, you know, they're kind of really going for that kind of worn, you know, battle-worn Greeny feel. And, you know, for the Gibson version, if you want some kind of relict, you know, approximation of the actual Greeny, you got to pay 20 grand to get the Murphy Lab version. Whereas this, you know, this is half the price of the Epiphone version. So, something to think about. Thanks for watching. If you want to watch the Epiphone Greeny review that I did earlier, it's down in the description below. I'm going to play this one out, the outro with this one. So we'll see you again, and keep rocking, my friends.